Hey guys, welcome back. So today I am starting my onion hardening off process. These are going to be going in the ground in roughly like 10 to 14 days, and it's starting to get to the point where I need to harden them off. So I like to harden off my seedlings really gradually. These will be out for a few hours today, and then tomorrow they'll be out for an additional hour or two, and then I will keep up that process until they are completely out overnight or pretty much all throughout the day. So the hardening off process is really important if you are starting seedlings inside. They aren't used to the weather or the conditions or the super strong sun. So allowing your seedlings to kind of take their time to get acclimated to the weather is really important. That way you don't have any type of sun scald or anything like that, or like this, how they're kind of in the breeze at the moment. Kansas is pretty windy, so I always have a fan on downstairs when I have my seedlings inside to kind of help with any of that movement, to kind of help that strongness of the base. I'm in Kansas zone, I think 7A. I used to be 6B, so it's really hard for me not to say 6B anymore. And our last expectant frost here is around mid-April. So I plant out my onions 6 weeks before my last average frost. Overall, I am really impressed on how my seedlings are looking this year. This year I sowed out 1 to 2. I think I have a few that have 2 onions per block, but overall a lot of these are just 1 seedling per block, so I can easily plant them out. So I was originally not going to film today, but it's such a nice day that I figured I should probably get out in the garden and do a few things while we have this nice weather. So one thing on top of my list that I'm going to start off with first is weeding all my garlic. I mentioned a few weeks back how I was starting to get a handful of weeds. Garlic does not like to compete with weeds. So I'm gonna get all of this weeded. There's not too much, but I have some little grass patches popping up in here. I have some other like little weeds popping up. So I'm gonna get all of that out that I see. And then I'm also going to feed the garlic for the first time. So a few weeks back when I was mentioning the whole weeding thing, I also told you guys I was a little unsure on exactly how I was going to feed my garlic this year. So I've been kind of going back and forth, trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. The previous few years, I would initially start off with blood meal, and then I would switch to bone meal. And I was reading up a little bit more on just different things you could do. And I've been using kelp and fish fertilizer when it comes to the onions. And I've been really thinking the onions have been responding really well to that. And I was doing a little bit more research when it came to garlic and using fish and kelp fertilizer. And it seems like a really good option. So this is something I'm doing brand new this year. I'm going to be really curious to see how this completely turns out and see how the harvest goes. But feeding your garlic once it gets to about 6 inches is really important. So with garlic, you want to feed it when you first plant it in the fall, and then you're going to feed it here in the early springtime. So once the garlic scapes appear, which for me is around mid-May, I will completely stop feeding. So these first few months of growth is really important to make sure that the garlic has all of the nutrients it needs. So I'm gonna go through and weed everything, and then I'm gonna show you guys what I'm gonna do when I feed the plants. You know it's early spring when you don't mind weeding your garden. You just want something to do in the garden. So I have my handy dandy sprayer here and my fish and kelp fertilizer I've been using. And I'm using a sprayer because I'm doing a foliar feed, which is just when you spray the leaves of the plant and it can soak in all those nutrients from its leaves. So to do this, I'm just going to mix, I think, 1/8 of a cup per gallon. Yep. I will say, this stuff does not smell the best, but it does work really well. If you like the smell of fish. All right, where is my gallon marker? For anyone new here, I planted out, 4 different varieties of garlic last fall. So this is my first year I'm doing soft neck. So I'm really excited to try soft neck for the fact you can braid soft neck varieties, and they also last in storage about 9 to 12 months. When a hard neck variety, which is these 2 beds, they typically only last in storage about 6. So I'm really excited to have a little bit longer shelf life when it comes to the soft neck garlic. Looks like I missed a few weeds here, but yeah, I'm really excited to play around with the soft neck. I did a variety called Ischium Red. I was looking at varieties that do well here in Kansas, and this was one that they suggested. I also have a bunch of Chestnut Red, Georgian Fire, Italian Purple. So those are all the varieties I went with this year. Chestnut Red is one of my absolute favorites, but garlic's pretty easy to grow. Really hope my batteries in this thing doesn't die, because I couldn't tell you the last time I've charged this sprayer. An everyday pump sprayer from any type of hardware store works just as well. Man, it smells like a marina right now. If you were at a lake. This area here looks like a complete mess, but this is yarrow that I need to kind of trim up, and then I have echinacea here as well. But I also have a bunch of onions, like sprouting onions, just everyday green onions. And this is when I can always tell it's about to be onion planting time, because my little onion shoots go ahead and pop up, my little onion chives. But yeah, there's a lot of different areas I kind of need to just clean up. I'm going to be moving all of these. I have some new grow bags. I'm actually going to be moving the whole compost area probably here in a month or so. So I want to put a bunch of big grow bags right here for tomatoes. This gets such good sun, and I really want to move my compost area closer to the chicken area. Just worked here for the last, 3 or 4 years, but I also just want to have a whole new system, something that can kind of lock everything in. The fencing was really cheap and it's worked really well, but I do need to mix this up. Birds are chirping, it's warm, it's starting to feel like spring. I feel like February is just not the best month for me. I always struggle a little bit in February just because it's the end of winter. I really want to start getting to gardening. I'm over my gardening break. By the time November hits, I'm definitely ready for a gardening break, but that typically only lasts about 4 to 6 weeks. So one thing I hope to show you guys is, even if you are in a smaller space like mine, where my backyard is roughly 2,000 square feet, you can still do a lot with your space and learn and grow. Another thing I've been meaning to do is get my chickens fence out. So you guys may remember last year I got them a chicken fence. Well, these are a new group of chickens and I've never clipped their wings before. I just wanted them to stay pretty cooped up during the winter time, since they weren't used to that space anyway. But it's getting to the point now where, as I spend a little bit more time outside, I'm gonna let my chickens kind of free range a little bit. So I do want to go ahead and get their fence back up and rocking. This is just kind of a pain in the butt to put up. So we're gonna see how this goes today. I really don't have any high hopes for it, but I do need to clip these chickens' wings. And I will say, this group of girls is a lot more ornery than my last group of girls. I got the whole fence up, and then I remembered that I needed to clean out the inside of the coop, and it's really hard to do that while the fence is fully intact. So I'm gonna get the whole inside here cleaned out. Collect some eggs first. All right. Got 4 eggs today. Looks like we have someone new laying. You can see how small the eggs are when they first start laying. Got a small one like this yesterday too. I think all the girls have officially started to lay. Okay, here comes the hard part. Seeing who's gonna let me clip their wings. Okay, so to clip your wings, I'm gonna hold the bird, go go like this with the wing, and I'm gonna cut these flight wings right here. Go ahead. Oh, well, that's not the right way. Now I don't know who's... So these girls are a lot more crazy than my last batch. My last batch was a lot more docile. I have to clip their wings because I obviously don't want them in my garden space, and these things can jump. Come on. Did I put up your fence for no reason? So my last batch of girls were a bunch of Isa Browns, and they were also quieter and a lot more calm. I have a batch of Rhode Islands and 2 Wyandottes. And as you can see, they are quite rambunctious. It's really crazy because, again, like I said, they were a lot more, my Isas were a lot more quiet, and I did not expect these ones to be so loud, but these girls are rowdy. Okay, I'm gonna roll it out. I should really know better than to think chickens are going to participate in what I want them to do. One thing I'm probably going to do over the next week or two is go ahead and get this extra plastic off. This is really only needed for me for like the dead of winter when we get really cold, and I think we're completely past that hump now. But anyway, this fence is just a everyday fence. There's no electricity to it, so it's not really predator proof at all. Typically, I only have let my chickens out in the past when I'm home or if I'm outside and things like that. But yeah, again, we will see if these girls even really want to, because they have zero interest. One thing I can do with the chickens is once they go to bed, I can pull them off the roost. They're a lot more calm at that time since they are going to bed, and I could clip their wings then. Don't really know if I'm going to do that tonight or in the next few days. We will see. I digress. Aw, sweet. I really thought this oregano was completely dead, but it's looking like it's coming back. So one thing I plan to do with my A-frame trellis this year is actually put a bunch of cloth planters underneath, and I'm gonna grow sweet potatoes. At least that's the plan. I'm gonna be starting sweet potato slips here in like a week, which I've never done, so we will see how that turns out. I do think it's really important that every year you do a garden that you play around and experiment a little bit, because you only have once a year to kind of do that, and then that's the way you really learn when it comes to gardening. I have grown sweet potatoes once, but I did not grow the slips. So, but it seems pretty easy, and I have my sweet potatoes ready. All right, we are back in the seed room. I'm going to start some snapdragons today. This is one of the last seedlings I think I'm going to start in the month of February. They say to start about 8 to 10 weeks before your last average frost, and I'm about 10 weeks out from my plant date. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these going. I have seen that these seeds are super, super tiny. So I've never grown snapdragons before, but I got a variety called the Potomo Early Sunrise. It is so beautiful. So I'm really, really excited about these. So last week we did all of our peppers, and we are starting to germinate. I always notice that jalapenos are one of the first ones to get going, and I don't know if you can really see or not, but we are starting to definitely get some little sprouts going, which is really exciting. Peppers take a while to germinate. They take anywhere from like 7 to 14 days, really. Like we are just now sitting at, I think, day 7 or day 8 since planting these out. I also have a few of those snacking peppers starting to germinate, which is really exciting. So all I'm going to do, do I not? Oh, okay. Well, I did not realize I didn't have any soil in here. I thought I still had some soil in here. So I need to mix up some soil real fast and make a handful of blocks. As always, I'm just going to use some everyday organic potting mix. We're gonna throw that in. I don't need to mix up too much soil today, so I'm gonna try not to mix up too much since I'm not planning on starting any more seeds for like the next week, 2 weeks. I can't really remember. All right, and then I also like to sprinkle just a little bit of worm castings in there. That should be plenty. All right, I need to go get some water. I don't know how fast they will grow, but by the fact it says to start about 8 to 10 weeks and the seeds are just as tiny as lavender, I expect them to be fairly slow growing at first. There we go. I have plans to kind of put these in the front of the garden. I'm going to be really curious to see if I have a million Goldie honey bears end up just randomly germinating in those first 2 garden beds. Because so last year I had a volunteer Goldie that ended up being like the most beautiful Goldie honey bear sunflower I have ever grown, and it was a volunteer. So the seeds had to have just been there over winter, and it was beautiful. So one thing I purposely did this year was I left one of my Goldies just kind of sit and chill, and when it came to overwintering, I just left it there and there was seeds in it, and we'll see how many just randomly pop up this year. I have a whole side of a garden bed that's all Goldies. I will let it be. But one thing I feel like I've done really well over the years is timing out seed starting a lot better. When I first started, I started all of my seeds at once. I had no idea about cool weather crops and warm weather crops and what would do well at what. I don't even think I started seeds that year until end of March, April. So if you're seeing me and being like, wow, this is pretty early, no, you have enough time. Surface sow into open, blah, 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 light. Okay, so light is required to germinate these just like lavender. One question I did get with the lavender was if I did any cold stratification with them, and I didn't. So I have done cold stratification with lavender in the past, and it's worked really well. But when I was reading the back of my lavender seed packet this year, I'm growing a variety called Elegance, and it's supposed to be a first bloom lavender, so a first season lavender. There's a lot of lavender varieties that are second season, so you won't get blooms the first year, but you'll get blooms the second year. And with me, lavender is one of those plants that really doesn't overwinter well for me. So I really wanted to see if there was any varieties that had first blooms, and that's when I ran into that Elegance variety. And on the back of the seed packet, it stated nothing about cold stratification. So I ended up looking into it, and shockingly enough, there's a lot of people that state that cold stratification isn't needed when it comes to lavender. So found that really interesting. My lavender germinated really, really well. So I will take that as a win. I swear there's sometimes I will sow seeds and it feels like I didn't do something correctly, and then they still germinate. After all these years, I still feel like I am not doing something correctly. But yeah, that was pretty quick. We'll put snap. I like that. I will say hardening off seedlings is my least favorite part of the seed starting process, just because of the whole up and down with starting seeds from my basement. Well guys, I think that's going to be it for today's video. I know this was pretty random and kind of all over the place, but I hope you just enjoyed spending the afternoon with me in the garden. I'm going to give the cats a little bit of outdoor time before the sun sets today, since it is such a beautiful day. But thank you guys so much for hanging out today. I will see you guys all in the next one. Bye.